What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my Week 7 NCAA football preview and picks. Unfortunately, Ty won't be joining us this week. It's his prior obligations. But we look at last week's picks, and neither of us did really well. I went 500 and beat Ty by one game because the only game we picked different was the SMU Louisville game. But other than that, it was a big week for upsets, lots of upsets last week, as you can see here. Five of the teams that lost were all upset losses. And then obviously, you had some other games that were very good as well. So good week of college football last week. Same for the bets. Obviously, we didn't do too well. I went 3-3. Ty went 1-4-1. So brutal week for both of us, I guess. But we look to change that this week. Week 7, I'm going an under and over, and then just some regular spreads. Washington, Iowa under. It's at Iowa. I think that game could be a 20-17 type of game. Whoever wins that one. Oklahoma plus 15 and a half. Both Ty and I have that one. Rivalry game. I always think that these two teams play well against each other and it's always a close game. So I like the 15 and a half there and Ty does too. Penn State minus 3.5 at USC. I think this Penn State team, if they want to prove that they are going to be one of those top teams this year, they have to go win this game by a touchdown, in my opinion. USC is a decent team, but you got to take care of business on the road against these teams. That's what Penn State has to do. LSU plus 3.5 versus Ole Miss. Both Ty and I are liking that one. Vanderbilt plus 13 at Kentucky. And obviously, I'm going with Vanderbilt riding off that hot streak being Bama last week at home. I think they can go into Kentucky and compete. I'm not saying they're going to win the game, but I definitely think that they can get 13 points and not lose that bet at least. Then the Kansas State Colorado, I like the over in that one of 55 and a half. I think those offenses are just going to be going back and forth all night long. Ty, he has Utah minus 6.5 at Arizona State, expecting them to win big there. BYU to win against Arizona. Arizona's kind of crumbling. BYU undefeated so far this year, so I can see that one. Ohio State -3 against Oregon. It should say at Oregon on the road. And that's a toss up. I think that's probably the biggest coin flip game this year that we've seen besides the Bama Georgia game. And then you have West Virginia +3 on the road against Iowa State. So the first game, we both got Utah here. It's a big game for both these teams in the Big 12. If Arizona State wants to prove that they are going to be a legit threat this year in the Big 12, got to win this game at home against Utah. Utah, same thing. They got to go on the road, beat a decent team in their conference, and prove to not only the nation but the committee that they can be a team that possibly could earn a bid into the playoff, not just by winning conference. Saturday, no noon games that we're talking about this week. So we got Cincinnati going on the road to face UCF. Both of us are going with UCF here on the road, or UCF at home with Cincinnati coming on the road. It's a good game for both these teams to keep their hopes alive for the conference. If you lose this one, 3-3, 6 games through the year, two conference losses in the Big 12, it's not looking too promising right now. But we're going to both go with the Golden Knights here at home. And a big game in the ACC, yeah, Louisville, Virginia, and Louisville's been struggling here recently, coming off two straight losses. Yeah, I think it's going to be three. I think Virginia is going to get the best of them. Virginia played well last week, pulled an upset off, got the win. So they're playing some good football right now. And Louisville on the road getting 7 or favored by 7, and Ty's going with Louisville here. But I don't know. I think this is going to be a back and forth game that could be decided by a field goal. And then you got the Texas Oklahoma game, probably the second biggest game of the week. We're both going Texas here. I think on paper you got to take Texas, but it's a rivalry game, so you never know what could happen. But Oklahoma's schedule starting this week and on is brutal. And I think this is going to be the start of the downfall of Oklahoma for this year. For Texas and Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, I think both of them are get playing time in this one. And that's just kind of where I stand on that, at least for the end. I don't know how serious Ewers or how full healthy he is, but I think Texas, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. I think they're going to win this one. And on CBS, I think this is probably going to be a good game that you're going to tune to late. Penn State, USC. I wouldn't be shocked if Penn State wins this one at the end with a field goal or maybe a late touchdown. But the Nittany Lions ranked fourth in the country, obviously showing the country that they are going to be a good team this year. But if they gotta prove it this week, like I said earlier. If they lose this game, then I think it's same old Penn State. But if you win this game, go on the road, be 6-0, yeah, they might start thinking, yeah, this Penn State's kind of a lock to get into the playoff if they keep playing football like this. But Miller Moss and company at USC, I know they're going to be fighting to pull off the upset. Then at 4, you got Arizona and BYU, and I would have thought that the records would be flipped at this point in the season. I had high expectations for Arizona, but then now they have fallen out of the rankings. BYU enters at 14, 5-0 start, and we're both going with BYU here at home. I think they keep it rolling, 6-0 in the Big 12. That conference this year is just going to be battling and beating teams up, and if BYU can keep finding ways to win games, then they may be that clear-cut team that gets the bye or maybe even an automatic bid just because of their record and how good they've played teams in the Big 12 to the playoff late in the season. Moving to the nightcap at 7:30, Ole Miss, LSU. Both of us are going with LSU at home, getting 3.5. And obviously we took that and we're taking LSU as well. So I think this is a tough place to play. Baton Rouge and Ole Miss, normally they start to fall apart here towards this type of the season, middle of the season. They start to fall apart. They'll probably finish 9-3. I think LSU has a good team this year. Brian Kelly, Garrett Nussmeier, they always can find ways to win games. At least Brian Kelly has always done that. And LSU's kind of been the same way. And I think this is a game, whoever loses this game is probably not out of the playoff, but has to win out to get in the playoff. And if you win this one, it's a huge resume builder and obviously keep your SEC chances alive for the SEC championship. Probably the biggest game of the week for the Big Ten, biggest game of the year. And Ohio State goes on the road to face Oregon. I'm going with Oregon. Ty's going with Ohio State. I mean, this is just a coin flip game. If it was in Columbus, I'd probably take Ohio State, but it's in Oregon. It's huge implications. Dylan Gabriel, I think, is going to have one of the best games of his career if Oregon wins this game. Ohio State, though, they have pretty much all the weapons to compete with Oregon to go back and forth. And I think that's what makes this game so enticing. But I'm going with the Ducks here at home with Ty goes with the Buckeyes on the road. In another game, we're going different. I'm going with actually Iowa State goes on the road to beat West Virginia. And Ty's taking West Virginia to finally get that huge statement win that they've been looking for all year against Iowa State. And I just think the Cyclones are a very quiet team in the Big 12, kind of like BYU has been, but now they're starting to gain some traction. And if Iowa State wins this game, yeah, they're probably going to start to make some noise here in the rankings, probably move into the top 10 and really turn some heads here if they can get this win at West Virginia. Then the last game of the week that we have for you, Kansas State at Colorado. Both of us are going with the Buffs at home. And let's say Colorado wins this game, you might be looking at a 5-1 ranked Colorado team, proving some haters and doubters wrong at this point in the season. They go 5-1. Let's say they win this game, beat Kansas State. They're definitely going to be ranked next week, that's for sure. And they still got a chance to make the playoff, whoever wins this game. Whoever loses, chances probably aren't going to be there because, like I've been saying all video, the Big 12, man, the Big 12 is just going to beat up on these teams. Great games every week. There's 2 or 3 games that have huge implications on the conference standings. But for this one and this game, I think Travis Hunter is going to have to take over if Colorado wants to win this game. That's going to be it from our Week 7 preview and picks. Check back next week where you'll have Ty join me to recap last week's picks and next week's games. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.